tragic death of recruit Enrique Delgado Garcia came at a moment when the state's largest law enforcement agency had seemingly hit rock bottom.
The timing of this incident with Enrique's death could not come at a worse time for the Massachusetts State Police.
The latest in a relentless drumbeat of scandals.
It's not only a steady drumbeat, it's a loud drumbeat, and it's getting louder and louder and louder.
We don't have time to recap all the problems, but here's a quick look at how state police arrived at this crucial moment.
Charging false claim to employer. How do you plead?
Not guilty. The widest-reaching scandal was an overtime fraud scheme that implicated nearly 50 state troopers in 2018. Troop E along the Mass Pike was disbanded after the scheme came to light, which resulted in criminal convictions and restitution to taxpayers.
Mr. Pullman,
But the parade of perp walks outside federal court continued. The former president of the State Troopers Union landed in prison for accepting kickbacks and spending union money on expensive meals and taking trips to Florida with his girlfriend. And earlier this year, 4 current and former troopers accused of taking bribes like new driveways and snowblowers. In exchange for the gifts, federal prosecutors say the officers gave passing scores on the commercial driver's license test, a process they called the Golden Handshake. But the problems only got worse this summer during the high-profile Karen Reed murder trial. Lead investigator Michael Proctor testifying on the stand about crude text messages he wrote to friends and coworkers about the defendant, calling into question his bias and credibility in the case.
To literally try and get away with murder.
And then in August, the feds charged former Stoughton detective Matthew Farwell with the murder of Sandra Birchmore, a woman he'd had a sexual relationship with since she was 15, grooming her while she participated in a youth police program. State police had previously investigated her death and determined it was a suicide, despite Farwell being the last person to see her alive, and Birchmore allegedly telling the married police officer she was pregnant with his child. The negative headlines culminated in September with the inexplicable death of recruit Delgado Garcia after a training exercise at the State Police Academy.
I myself have more questions than I actually have answers.
What do you think the lasting impact was on public perception? Because of all those questions, we're teaming up with journalism students at Boston University.
The text messages between them just calls into question so many of their other practices.
The in-depth reporting class I teach, digging into issues surrounding the Mass State Police and asking if lessons from the past were forgotten.
I saw that and shivers went up my spine. And I turned to my wife and I said, no, here we go all over again.
Whether there's a different way deaths in Massachusetts should be investigated.
We definitely 100% need a different process. They can't be impartial and they can't be transparent.
Why so many of the systemic problems seem to persist.
Where's the outrage? Internally, there's no incentive to change. It has to come from the outside.
And with a new leader from the outside taking the helm for the first time.
If I say Massachusetts State Police, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Corruption.
What needs to happen for Mass State Police to regain public trust?
And as an agency, we have to do better. There's just no way around it.
Can this agency be turned around?
That's a big question. They have a long, long way to go.
Ryan Kath, NBC 10 Investigators.